Hello and welcome to codeandpractice.com. In this tutorial you are going to learn about strings. Now strings are objects. What objects are, we'll cover that later, but right now all you need to know is that they are not primitive data types and they have functions associated with them. We're going to cover functions also later, but right now I want you to know how to use functions. So first of all, let me tell you that strings are actually a string of characters, and that's why the name strings. So we have a string of characters over here. This is a line of text simply, and this is called a string. And the way to declare a string is string followed by the variable name and then a semicolon. So notice also that the S in the string is capital, and that is important. So here I've just assigned S1 a value. S1 is equal to, in double quotes, whatever value or line of text that I want to assign to it. I have created another string over here and then another string over here. So the first thing that you need to know about string is that they can be concatenated or joined together. Over here I have S3, and in S3 I have the concatenation of S1 and S2. What that means is that I have joined S1 and S2, so that makes it, this is where it begins and this is where it ends, and I have given that entire value to the S3 variable. So remember that we could print lines of text within double quotes in the string system.out.println method. Well, we can also print out string variables. So let's print out the S3 variable over here and see what it gives us. Oops, we need to compile this first and then run it, and as you can see it gives us the value of S3, which is the concatenation of these two strings, which is, this is where it begins and this is where it ends. So now that you know that, it is time to tell you that this is an object and it has some functions. Now what are functions and how they work internally, we will discuss that later, but right now I want you to know how to use functions. And that's basically the beauty of functions, that you can use them without even knowing how they work internally. So before we plunge into such functions, I have to tell you that there is an index position associated with each character in a string. So the index position is basically a way of getting to a particular character in a string, and the positions are 0, 1, 2, 3, they just start from the beginning, and they begin with 0. That's the main thing to keep in mind. They begin with 0 and then they keep on increasing by one and so on. So the edge has the index position of 1 and so on. You can say that W has the index position of 8. Now that you know this, let us just begin with the functions of string. So the first function that we are going to discuss is length. Length function is pretty straightforward. For example, if I want to find out how many characters long is the string S3, I can just say S3 then dot and then length and then a static parenthesis and a closing parenthesis. Let's save that, recompile and run it, and it says 49. So the S3 string is 49 characters long. Next function that we're going to discuss is charadd, and what charadd does is tells you what character is at a particular position. So let's use that function now. Char and capital A T. So let's find out what is at position 7. So let's save that and let's run that again. And we have nothing. Well, why is that? Let's see that. We began from position 0, right? 2, I'm sorry, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and look at that, we have a space at 7. So let's put in something different over here. Let's put in 8. Oops, 8. And it should give us the value W. So let's rerun this. And as expected, it gave us the value 8. So the next function that we are going to discuss is index of. And what index of does is it tells us what the index is of a particular character or a particular string within a string. So let's see that now. We'll change char to index of, and the O is capital, mind you. And I want to know what is the index of the character W, for example. And we know that it's 8. So that will give us 8 if we are correct. So let's compile that. Let's run it. And as you can see, it gave us the value 8. Remember that it will give us the value wheresoever first it finds. So we have W over here and we also have W over here, but it gave us the first occurrence, remember. Also, if we were to find a string within the S3 string, we could also do that. So let's suppose that I want to find the value of begins, right? So I'll just copy this over here, and it will tell me the starting position of begins. So it says 17, and so it's 17 because if we start counting from here, this is 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, and then B is at 17. Remember that the index is being returned and not the position. If you want to find the position, you can do something like this. You can say whatever is the index, add 1 to that. So then we'll get the actual position, and that's just 1 greater than the last. So now that we know that, let's move on to the next function, which is substring. And what substring does is we can provide it some values and it will tell us what string is within those values. So it takes the form like this. It says substring, and notice that in this case S is small because substring is one word, and then we can give it let's remove this 1 from here first, and then we give it two values, two integer values, so, and separated with the comma. So let's suppose we want to find out what is between the 4th position and the 6th position. So let's give this some numbers to make this easier. So we want to find out from the 4th position to the 6th position. We want to find out what is there. So we should get a space and then I and is. So let's see if that works. So we say 4, a comma, and then 6, right? Save that, compile that. Oops, we have an error. We cannot have just a bunch of numbers lying around, so let's comment that out. And if you don't know what a comment is, it's just if we say 2 double slashes, that will just erase this line from the view of the compiler. So this will be like this line never existed, and the compiler will just overlook this and won't compile it. So let's save that. Let's compile this again. It compiles, and now let's run it, and it says a space and then I, and it does not give S. Well, that's because the substring takes the index in as the first value, and in the second value it takes the position and not the index. Now this is a bit tricky, but this should be kept in mind because the functions that I'm telling here are very essential to our future studies. So just remember that this is the position. When we say 6, it is actually the 6 that is over that is over here. The 6 is over here because this is actually 7, because you know that if we were to count the positions, we would count from 1, so the 6 would actually be a 7. So if we are to get the value is, the space is value, we will have to specify 7 over here, and then what it will do, it will start counting from the 4th position, 4th, 5th, 6th, and then leave out the 7th. So let's save that and let's recompile. Oops, we forgot to comment these out. And if we run this now, we get the value space and then is. That's all done except for one function, which is a very easy function, and that is the equals function. And the way we use it is when we are to compare two strings. So we say s3 equals, and then in brackets we say, well, let's say s1. And what this will do is it will evaluate whether s3, the contents of s3 are equal to what the contents of s1 are. And in our case they are not, so we should expect a negative response. And you know how Java gives a negative response, it says false. Let's see if we can make another string and make that equals to, let's say, the first string. So string s4 equals, and I can just do the above lines that I've done in 2 lines. I can just do this in 1 line like this, and let's just copy this from here to here. So now I have s1 and s4, and they both have the same values, and if we compare them using the equals method or the equals function, so if I say is s1 equal to s4, the compiler will result in a positive response like this, true. So these are some essential functions that you would need in order to do some string comparison, and we will also need them when we are dealing with things like if, else, while, and these constructs, because I will demonstrate them using these functions and the string class. So that's it for now, and thank you for viewing.